Margarita School. Mr. Cooper is super. New York Times best-selling author Dan Gutman. Picture by Jean Pilet. Chapter 4. Saying goodbye is sad. The alien Mr. Granite were going to take our Mr. Granite away. Everybody started yelling and screaming, freaking out. No, don't go! As much as I hate to use the Albert, we all love Mr. Granite. We didn't want him to leave. Mr. Granite had been teaching at our school for a long time. So Mr. cuts to the alien. Why are you suddenly showing up now? Good question. That's why Mr. Cutts is the principal. We do apologize for our lateness, said one of the Mr. Granite. And Teenage is 100 million light years away from Earth. It took us a long time to get here. And besides, we got stuck in traffic. He was definitely lying about that. I don't even think they have traffic in outer space. Whenever my parents are late for something, they always say that they were stuck in traffic. That's the first rule of being a grown-up. I wonder if the alien Mr. Granite were going to peel off their face. Aliens are always peeling off their face in the movies. That's the first rule of being an alien. And peeling off your face is cool. I wish I could peel off my face. Are you going to peel your face off? I asked the Mr. Granites. Don't mind if I do, said they all real up. The alien Mr. Granite reached up to the top of their heads with both hands. All the girls screamed. I covered my eyes with my hand. I wanted to see the Mr. Granite peel off their face, but at the same time, I didn't want to see what was underneath. What if it was scary? So I covered my eyes, but I opened my fingers so I could look between them. All the Mr. Granite pulled at the top of their head. The heads opened up like pistachio nuts. Then they peeled the entire face off. It was awesome, and you'll never believe in $1,100,000 years what the Mr. Granite looked like underneath that face. They look exactly the same. That was refreshing, said one of the Mr. Granite as he threw his old face off. Mr. Granite, as he threw his old face off to the side. Hey, Alexia said, some face look just like the one you peel off. It never hurt to have an extra face, said one of the Mr. Granite. Even so, the peel-off face looked exactly the same as the regular face. It was still pretty cool. It's not every day you can get to see a bunch of aliens peel their face off. All the Mr. Granites started hugging and crying again. It was hard to tell which of the Mr. Granite was ours because they all looked the same. I didn't think you would ever come for me, said our Mr. Granite. We never forgot about you, Mr. Granite, said one of the Mr. Granite. We hear that you built a spaceship, said another one of the Mr. Granite. Yes, said our Mr. Granite, but a cow bumped into it when I was taking off. I almost died. That won't happen this time, Mr. Granite, said one of the other Mr. Granite. We must leave now, before any more cows come around. Everett started yelling and sobbing and freaking out. Don't leave us, Mr. Granite, begged Alexia. Please, 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 we all begged, saying please over and over again. Usually work with grown-ups and enlist human grown-ups. I've enjoyed my time on Earth as you so great teacher, said Mr. Granite, but in Teenage is my home. Now I must return to my own planet. I was moaning, groaning, and freaking out. Mr. Cutts, can you do something? Asked Emily. You're the principal. Yeah, we all said. Mr. Cutts held up his hand and made a peace sign. Richmond, shut up. Then he took a step forward to shake Mr. Granite's hand. Then he took a step forward to shake Mr. Granite's hand. "You're a great teacher, Mr. Granite," he said. "We will miss you here at elementary school." "I'm not a teacher," said Mr. Granite. "You must mean the other Mr. Granite." "Oh, yes," said Mr. Klotz. "I'm sorry. It's very confusing when you all look alike." "No worries," said old Mr. Granite. They started moving up the ramp to go back inside the spaceship. The Mr. Granite who was our teacher went over to Mr. Klotz and they hugged. "We borrowed Mr. Granite from the good people of Teenage," Mr. Klotz told us, "but now we must return him. When you borrow something, you should always return it. I really enjoy working at elementary school," Mr. Granite said. "Living here made me feel sad." Everybody was choked up. Even Mr. Klotz looked like he was going to cry. Mr. Granite gathered all the kids in our class around him for the group hug. "I'm going to miss you, kid, more than anything else," he said, tears in his eyes. "We are going to miss you too, Mr. Granite," we all said. "When I get home," said Mr. Granite, "I'm going to name my teenage friend AJ, Andrew, Ryan, Amy, Michael, Alexia, and Neil." We all sobbing and blubbering and blowing our nails into tissues. Well, only one nosed person. It would be weird to blow two noses. "I hope you will remember what I told you this year," said Mr. Granite. I thought back and remembered some of the things Mr. Granite had told me during this year. I before E, except after C. "Sit down. Be quiet. Stop talking. Tie your sneakers. Stop bothering Andrea. Stop talking. Stop picking your nose. No, you can go to the bathroom. Boy room now. Where your homework? Stop talking. Go to principal office. Stop making awkward farts." They were good all day. Mr. Granite pulled himself away from us and climbed into the spaceship. With all the other Mr. Granite, the ramp slid up into the ship. A few minutes later, the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Dark smoke started coming out of the spaceship. 7, 6, 5. I could hear that weird humming sound. 4, 3, 2. Color lights started flashing. 1. Just before the spaceship was about to take off, window opened up. Mr. Granite poked his head out of the window and shouted to us, "Turn to page 23 in your math books." But he never had a chance to finish his sentence. "Hey, how come this book is called Mr. Cooper Super? There hasn't been anybody named Mr. Cooper in it." "That's weird." Chapter 5. The New Teacher. We all watched as the spaceship with Mr. Granite inside lifted slowly up off the playground. This time there was no clouds around to mess things up. The ship zoomed to the left, then it juked to the right, and then it was gone. Mr. Granite had left the planet. For a few seconds nobody said anything. There was nothing to say. Then Emily the crybaby started crying, of course. After that, everybody was crying, even me. Mr. Granite was weird, but he was a really good teacher. "What are we going to do now?" Andrea asked, wiping her eyes. "We don't have any teacher anymore. How can we learn anything without a teacher?" Then when I got the greatest idea in the history of the world. If Mr. Granite was gone, we didn't have a teacher. And if we didn't have teacher, we couldn't learn anything. And if we couldn't learn anything, there was no point in going to the school. They would have to shut it down. "No more school!" I shouted, jumping up and down. "No more school! No more school!" I figured everybody was going to jump up and down, chanting, "No more school," with me. I looked around. Nobody else was jumping up and down. Nobody else was chanting. Everybody was looking at me. I hate when that happened. I stopped chanting. We'll just have to deal with it tomorrow, said Mr. Cod sadly. For now, let's all go home. It's 3 o'clock, time for dismissal. The next morning, I couldn't wait to get to school and find out who our new teacher will be. Was it going to be a man or a lady, young or old, dark hair or blonde hair, short or tall, skinny or fat, human or robot, meat eater or plant eater, regular or extra crispy? And it turned out the answer was none of them above. When I got to our classroom, there was no teacher in there at all. So me and Michael and Ryan did what we always do when there are no grown-ups around. We shook our butts at the class. Boys, Andrew said, rolling her eyes, I wonder who's our next and new teacher is going to be, said Alexia. Bet me, said the new kid. Would you go to get a new teacher anyways? Asked Ryan. Rent a teacher, I will laugh. You can write anything. We'll probably have a substitute teacher for a few days, said Andrea, who thinks she knows everything. Mr. Klotz will need a little time to hire a new teacher. Teacher get hired? I asked. Does that mean they get paid too? Of course teacher get paid. Damn bad, said Andrea. I want to say something mean to Andrea, but I couldn't come up with anything beside. So is your face. I didn't know that teacher got paid. I said they just came to school every day because they had nowhere else to go. Maybe Miss Daisy will become our teacher again, said Emily, all excited. Miss Daisy was our teacher in the 2nd grade. She was a good teacher, except for the fact that she couldn't read, write, or do math. Come to think of it, she was the dumbest teacher in the history of the world. Her name isn't Miss Daisy anymore, Andrew said. She got married, so now her name is Mrs. Daisy. When ladies get married, they go from Miss to Mrs., and sometimes they go from Miss to Miss. Nobody knows why, but our new teacher wasn't going to be Miss Daisy, and it wasn't going to be Mrs. Daisy, and it wasn't going to be Miss Daisy either, because the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. You'll never believe who ran into the door at that moment. It was a good guy wearing a superhero costume. He ran right into the door. Then he found the classroom, slammed into the teacher's desk, and toppled over onto the floor. Ow! The guy moaned. I think I may have broken my leg. Ugh! We all ran to front of the class to help the guy up. Are you a superhero, Superman? Alexia asked. No, he laughed. I am Cooperman. Chapter 6. Mr. Cooper is super. Cooperman told us to sit in our seats. I guess his leg wasn't broken after all, because he limped and hobbled over to the whiteboard. He wrote this on it in big letter. Mr. Cooper, are you a real superhero? Asked Ryan. Of course I am, Mr. Cooper said. Can't you see my cap? Superhero always wear cap. Nobody know why. You never see regular people who walk down the street wearing a cape. What's up with that? Capes are cool. At that point, Mr. Cox came into the classroom. Ah, Mr. Cooper, I'm so glad you were able to find your room. I was going to introduce you to the children, but it looked like you all already done that. Kids, Mr. Cooper will be your new teacher. From now on, you are under his supervision. Wow, Mr. Cooper has supervision, I shout. Can't you see the strode walls? Of course, Mr. Cooper says. It's special word that have window in there. I have to go to a meeting, Mr. Cox told Mr. Cooper. I'll stop back here later to see how you're making out. Eee, gross! Everybody started choking and gagging because Mr. Cotts said making out. As soon as Mr. Cotts laughed, Mr. Cooper picked up a math book from Mr. Granite's desk. Oh no, it looked like he was going to teach us math. I said that after Mr. Granite was gone, we would never have to learn math again. Boomer in the summer. If a grown-up is about to say something, if you don't want to hear, you should change the subject as soon as possible. That's the first rule of being a kid, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I had to think fast. Do you have real superpower? I asked Mr. Cooper. Of course I do. We laughed. I wouldn't be so much of a superhero if I didn't have superpower. Can you fly? Asked Andrea. Sure I can fly, said Mr. Cooper. Oh, ooh, show us! And everybody started shouting. I only fly on Wednesday, said Mr. Cooper, and today is Thursday. Can you be invisible? Asked Alexia. Of course. Prove it, we all shouted. I already did, said Mr. Cooper. Before I came in the door, you didn't see me, did you? No. Because I was invisible. He's right, I shouted. Do you have super strength? Asked Ryan. Can you bend steel balls with your bare hand? That's easy peasy, said Mr. Cooper, but I wouldn't want to win a perfectly cool steel ball. Do you have heat vision? Asked Michael. Can you burn things up just by looking at them? Of course, said Mr. Cooper, but why would anybody want to do that? It would be cool way to cook hot dogs, I said, or you could toss marshmallows with your eyes. I never thought of that, said Mr. Cooper, but I will not. I will show you another superpower I have. I can make you think of anything I want you to think about. What? We all said. No way. You can do that, said Dale. Nobody tell me what to think about, said Alexia. Fine, said Mr. Cooper. Don't think of an innermost pink elephant right here in the classroom. Okay, I won't, I said. And this innermost pink elephant is wearing a tutu, said Mr. Cooper. Everybody laughed. It would be funny to see an inner pink elephant wearing a tutu. And the elephant is holding a little umbrella and sing John Jacob Jinglehammer streamed it, said Mr. Cooper. I can make you think about that in your head. I try not to think about an enormous pink elephant wearing a tutu and holding a little umbrella while sing John Jacob Jinglehammer streamed it. But it was impossible. In fact, all I could think about was an enormous pink elephant wearing a tall tutu and holding a little umbrella while sing John Jacob Jinglehammer committed. I'm thinking about it, said Andrea. I can't picture it in my head. Me too, said Philomene. I can't help it. The whole class was thinking about an enormous pink elephant wearing a tutu and holding a little umbrella while it sang John Jacob Jinglehammer did. And so are you, I bet. He did it, shouted Michael. Mr. Cooper can make people think of anything he wants. It's amazing, said Alexia. See, said Mr. Cooper. I told you I have superpower. He's really is a superhero, said Ryan. Mr. Cooper's super. If you ask me, Mr. Cooper is weird.